Hey, you guys, I got stuck again on some verses, but it was because of going over Revelation 19:20. I'm brushing a cat. Come on, kitty. I'm not going to follow you. You have to follow me. Um, so I, because of that, 19, 20, 21, 22. I notice he is talking about the New Jerusalem, the new heaven and new earth. So, you know, throughout Revelation, so I had to go back to the beginning for some things, and to prove to myself that throughout Revelation, he talks about the very end. Yeah, he talks about, I've found the verses, and when you reread them closely, where was it? So anyway, I was having my little outline thing, and and I guess I was going to go over that with you. Things like the beast, the beast coming out of the pit, the false prophet, the image. Um, Try brushing your cat with two brushes. And if you use the rolled brushes, the hair flying doesn't fly so much in your face. There was a time where one of my cats, Big Angel, this is Little Angel, doesn't like brushing anymore for some reason. But so she would get hairier. So when I would brush her, even with these rolled brushes, it would fly in my face, and I would wear safety glasses and then one of those hair tubes, um, get all my hair out of my face. Oh no, I would wear a hair tube like right here. One of those headband things, long headband. So, and then I just brush them like this because they like their whiskers brushed. Come, come. And so, anyway, I started off with this. I wanted to know things like uh, the sequence of beginning, the woman and the dragon, and he falls, and then the beast from the pit arises, and then when does the false prophet come? When does the image of the beast? So I started with just those things, and because I was also doing the seals, the trumpets, and the vials, King James, or bowls. And then I listed all of those, but then I thought I want to redo those in a different format because I did them in this kind of format where I go 1, 2, 3, seal, trumpet, vial, 1, seal, trumpet, vial, 2. But I'd rather do them in columns like the seals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then the trumpet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then the vial 1, 2. So then you can kind of look across. Might be easier to, but so what my format with this was becoming after I did that breakdown is I thought, you know what, I'm going to put the seals and the trumpets and the vials and all that aside for now, and I'm just going to be working on the beginning of the trib, when the beginning of the trib ends and now becomes mid trib, when the first 3.5 is over, and then and that's called the Great Tribulation, from the mid, when those two witnesses die. And like, I'll show you an example. Okay, but I'm backtracking. Sorry. All right, so the beast that comes out of the abyss, I just found this as I'm going back over it because I forgot why I was going back over it, because I was going back over it because he starts talking about the New Jerusalem and the new heaven and the new earth, and then it being the end, the big end, like over end, and um, So I'm like thinking, okay, well, I know that throughout Revelation, he also talks about the very end, the very end, the very end, all the time. A whole chapter might be about the very end, and then he goes into the beast, and then he goes into the something else, and then he goes, the trumpets, and then so his main message really in all of it, it stays about the very end. So you'll see that theme, and then I can, because like the witnesses worshiping, not the witnesses, the 24 elders, the angels, the beasts, the four beasts, they'll lay down on their faces, start worshiping at certain times. I have those listed. So certain verses that are kind of repetitive, like the earthquake and the voices of thunder, or the thunder, I haven't gotten to those yet, but I think those are mentioned quite a few times. So for an example, here in 11:7, which is before 17, obviously, but in 11:7, he is proving that beast coming up out of the abyss happens at the end of the first 3.5 years. Because 17:8, when it's talking about him, the way it's worded even proves it. The way it's worded, it says, shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. When it happens is the way it's worded, meaning the second half of the 7-year tribulation has begun. Because it tells you right there that when it ascends, it kills the two witnesses. So the two witnesses have been witnessing for, the first 3.5 years. And I forgot my glasses, so some of this maybe I can read. And hopefully this video isn't going to be about nothing, but I'm just telling you that the dragon, the dragon in 12 is fighting with the woman. Okay, that's in 12. But when does it start talking about it's chapter 13. It specifically, and then even at the very end of the book, it says when they're cast, it gives all of Satan's names. It says the dragon, it says the serpent, it says the Satan, it says and the false prophet, and all the names, and the beast. I mean, it's basically giving all the names of Satan's names wherever it was. I think I circled all of them, so hopefully I can find it easier, but I've so scribbled up this thing. Never mind. I guess I won't. So, but even so, he probably, it could be in 19. He's talking about the very end. But then there's more, and then he goes kind of backtracks. Like even in the very end, like 21 or somewhere, he says, the angel of the vials, see right here. And there came unto me one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, full of the 7 last plagues. Okay? And they're into New Jerusalem. They're talking about New Jerusalem. All right, now, so he's probably, I haven't gotten there real good yet, but he's probably backtracking. Where are those 3 names? Anyway, he gives all 4 names or 5 names. Anyway, the thing is that in 13, the dragon gives his power to the beast that came up from the sea in the beginning of the tribulation. That beast has 7 heads and 7 horns. 7 heads are 7 kings with 7 kingdoms. 10 horns are 10 kings that do not have kingdoms. But the whole thing is coming up from the sea without a whore on its back. The whore shows up, and she shows up in the wilderness on a scarlet beast, okay? But yet, the way it's worded, it is at the same time. But she's out in the wilderness. This beast is not. He's coming up from the sea with some kings on his head. And the dragon who fell from heaven, it even says it again, a star in chapter 9. See how God flips around? So see how I was concentrating on only these large figures of Satan? I was getting creeped out there for a while because 2 days of this, and I'm like going, Satan, dragon, well, this, that, and I'm just constantly focusing on everything Satan, okay? I put a pause on the vials and the seals and because I'll squeeze those in later, but for now I want the sequence of all these dragons and beasts and Satan, okay? So, and I have it. I pretty much have that part, except for I hadn't read 19, 20, 21, and 22, and I was touching on it today and realizing, because yes, I'm noticing he's talking about the very end again, but this is different kind, and he's coming back. Okay, now he's coming back on horses with all of us, thousands and thousands on horses with him on a horse, all that. But it's also said again, it says it in 5:11, it says it in 7:9. It's talking about all the saints that have not taken the mark all the way to the end of the Great Tribulation, 7 years. So just because he's describing it a different way in the very end, when we're all coming back, in the beginning of Revelation, so in chapter 5 and in chapter 7, he's talking about those same saints, but they're not on horses with him yet. Or either they have, because they've got the palm branches, remember? They're all like, yay! And all the angels are singing. All the trib saints are singing. It's mentioned twice. One, it's mentioned all the saints, the tribulation saints, everybody, is in chapter 5. It's in chapter 7. So do you see how that's the end? That is the very end. And yet at the end of the book, he's talking about the very end again, with all of them coming in with him on the horse at the Armageddon. Now, chapter 5 and chapter 7, when they're mentioned, maybe that's before we all left. Maybe it's after we all got back. So, I'm not done with that yet. But here, this is the matter of timing. So you have the beast that falls, fighting with the woman. He also falls like a star in chapter 9. That's before chapter 12. And God is talking about Satan like a star. He falls, and what does he do? Yeah, he is given the key to the bottomless pit in the very beginning of the trib and lets out locusts for 5 months. I don't think that's a woe. Yeah, it is a woe. Then this is where it was getting freaky on me. Then there's 3 woes. The 5th trumpet is also a woe. And it is those locusts. That could very easily happen in the beginning of the trib. Remember how I said there's going to be so many miracles going on, no one's going to really care about the missing, because there's going to be locusts flying around. They could have gotten killed by that. There's going to be 4 angels from the river Euphrates loosed, and they have 200 million army of whatever they are. on horses for a year, a month, a day, and an hour. Okay, they're going to be killing a third of the population. They got tails too, and heads where their mouths breathe out stuff. And okay, now that is in, I didn't write down what chapter, but it takes a long time and for it to get to the end of the second woe. So the first woe is the locusts, and maybe the 4 angels from the river Euphrates, and the 3 of them, not the 3 of them as in the angels, it words. The 3 of them, meaning they're 3, like they've got a breastplate that's got 3 facets to it. Okay, so, because at first that confused me. That's might be the first woe, obviously, is these locusts being removed by Satan when he falls like a star in chapter 9. And then he gets the key to the bottomless pit. These locusts are running around, and they will be able to hurt everybody except for 5 months, except for the 144,000 that are probably marked in the beginning. Now, then, same time, probably, the 4 angels, demonic angels from the Euphrates are loosed. There's 200 million of them. The population of the earth is, it's 8 billion. Okay, never mind. Okay, so that's 5 months for the locusts. They can't hurt the 144,000, which are obviously all over the world. They've been gathered in to be marked and sealed. Then I think they run off and do their stuff, but I don't know. Then you have this river Euphrates thing, 200 million man for a year, a month, a day, and an hour. So the 5 months will be past, long gone, while these 4 demonic spirits are still wreaking havoc on everybody, and they, kill a third of the population. I don't know, what did I write here? 2 witnesses. Why did I write that? Oh, okay, because that's the first woe. Right there. No, it's the second woe. Okay, so the 5th woe is the locust. Then before that, it says, that, and then it says 2 more woes are to come. So I'm trying to figure out what those woes were because I'm backtracking. And you read that the 2 witnesses die. They get killed by the one that comes up from the abyss at the mid-trib. So you have Satan fall like a star. You also have him cast down to earth, right? And he is doing stuff for 3.5 years. Then coming up from the abyss, after 3.5 years, you think he's already done enough damage? No, he's about to do some more. He's coming up from the abyss. He is going to kill those 2 witnesses. That then says the second woe has passed. And that's only the 6th trumpet. The 3rd woe of the 7th trumpet says it will happen quickly. And that trumpet is going to happen at the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Okay, so it's just, that got tricky for me today. But I'll finish then what I was saying. So that woe has passed. After the 2 witnesses die and resurrect, they're going to be happy. They're going to be giving gifts for 3.5 days while they're dead in the street. But when God puts his spirit back in them, they awake, They come back to life. Everyone in the city only, the holy city. The holy city. Remember, it's been measured, but the outer court is left out, and the holy city is left out to be trampled by the Gentiles. So it still has some 2 million man army, something surrounding it for 3.5 years. But the Mount of Olives, they're hidden, which is the temple of God. Okay, it says it over and over in the Bible. Where was I? Darn. When they die and they're resurrected, everyone's going to freak out and be horrified, or I guess, in shock. Within an hour, an earthquake is going to happen that's going to crumble down 1/10 of the holy city of Jerusalem and kill 7,000 people. Then, because of that, a lot of people are going to give glory to God. It's also going to kick off the beginning of the Great Tribulation, which is basically when the Antichrist goes into the temple and says he's God, and everybody runs for the hills. Okay? So, in the beginning, how I'm saying it is Jesus is stepping on the Mount of Olives, and he's all the good Jews and whatever kind of Gentiles are in there in the first 3.5 years, and they're going to stay there, right? Okay, but when the end of the first 3.5 years, just the plain old tribulation is over, those 2 witnesses go back up and all this, and then the Antichrist rises. There's others. Remember, the whore gets killed and everyone's crying about it because they lost all their yum nicey stuff. Because during the first 3.5 years, there's going to be a lot of merchant, a lot of gluttony, a lot of expense, a lot of indulgence. Even though there's a lot of killing and everything, there's going to be a lot of buying and selling and merchantry. Remember, the whore in the city of Babylon is a bunch of merchant until it gets destroyed by the beast, by the Antichrist, who no longer wants her or needs her. And so the 2 witnesses are now gone. They were there the whole first 3.5 years trying to get everybody, while the whole holy city is being trampled. Anyone trying to harm them, they're going to breathe the fire out. Get away from me. That's why everyone's glad that they're gone when they finally go after 3.5 years, because they're probably trying to take over Jerusalem, which I guess is called the holy city. But yet Jesus says measure the temple, but the outer court. But anyway, I don't know those things. I haven't looked into that, but the reason you can know these things also is how when in 13 and maybe 17, 18, Jesus always is repeating this thing about, the reason he's repeating it is because he's wanting to let you know that, I forgot how I had it. He keeps repeating that truth that the beast got with the deadly head wound that rose again. He's always repeating that. Even though the text, it's obvious. It's so obvious that it's talking about this Antichrist, Satan, right? It's like God wants to reiterate it by telling you it is the beast that got the deadly head wound. And the reason he says that is for time and space. It's basically telling you, when he keeps repeating the description of the beast, even though it's obvious, it's him trying to tell you that the whore was present before he got his deadly wound. He's trying to tell you, I think the false prophet was present before he got his deadly wound. See, and I have the Bible scriptures but you can find them yourself as you're reading. So that's my timeline, how I figure that's the timeline. He'll repeat that. He says, the beast that, okay, so let me read to you then. Oh wait, I do have these glasses. All right, then. So the dragon gives his power to the beast when he falls like a star in the beginning. He also falls fighting with, those are just two different images of the same type of, same thing. Different chapters. Okay? And this is what was confusing me, was that God is backtracking in this book, and some of these things sound alike. So then the dragon, which is Satan, who falls, and the star and everything, in chapter 9, and then the dragon falls in chapter 12. So he gives his power to the first beast, the one that came out of the sea with the 7 kings on it and the 10 kings. So the dragon is working now only through that beast that came out of the sea. And I think God repeats that beast when he says, you saw the whore on the beast, she sat on 7 hills, but then he says later, she sat on the big water, or all the water, or something like that. And the sea is peoples. Well, is she sitting on peoples, or is she sitting on 7 hills? I mean, I haven't gotten that yet, but okay. So he's giving his power to that beast that came out of the sea. That is the very beginning. He is not indwelled yet. He's just walking around, kind of possessed by Satan. Satan is waiting for the first 3.5 years to end so he can give him a deadly wound and fully embody him. The beast number 2 says to worship the first beast, the one that came out of the sea with this, let's just say 12 kings on it. Okay? And he says, beast number 2 says to worship the beast number 1. Now this beast number 2 comes out of the earth, which means maybe he is a human being. Okay? He's a human being. The one that came out of the sea, who knows what that is? Okay? It could be a Martian for all we know. Most of those UFOs are coming out of the sea. If they're seen in the sky, they're usually seen above some big body of water. I mean, who knows? God did say it'll be like the days of Noah. Martians are always trying to do Frankenstein stuff with cow tissue bodies and human kidnappings and everything. Okay, but I'm just throwing that out there. I don't believe that, and I don't even care to even think, oh, is that possible? So this beast that comes out of the earth, he is saying, okay, the dragon gives his power to the first beast that comes out of the sea. He probably is giving, I forget, he gives his power to also this second beast. The second beast that comes out of the earth, he's a false prophet. Kind of like Islam. They got their false prophet, all right? So this is a false prophet, and he tells everybody, worship the first beast with the 12 kings on his head that came out of the sea. Okay, then there's a beast number 3. That is the image. And what is very interesting about this, the way it's worded, when you read it, it says, this second beast, which is the false prophet, it tells the people to make an image to the beast. Once that happens, I think the image then, yes, is given life, but the people of the earth in the tribulation have to make the image. So they're involved. Satan is making them get involved. This false prophet tells the population, the world, it says, I want you to make an image to this beast number one. Then, once they finish making that image, somebody breathes life into it. And I think it is the false prophet or the first beast. Okay. These three exist in the first half of the tribulation where there's population. Not at the end or in the middle where a lot of people have already died. They're all happening, especially the way it's worded. They're all alive. In fact, in the Great Tribulation, the whore gets killed. So the whore is even alive right now. She's alive. She's in the wilderness. She will get killed by this beast and these 12 kings. Actually, the 10 kings. I think the 7 kings is confusing, but the 7 kings, one of those 7 kings on that beast is the Antichrist before he is indwelt. Do you see what I mean by that beast? The dragon, Satan, that falls, he gives his power to that first beast out of the ocean with those kings on it. The 7 kings, 5 of them are not. One of them is. The 6th one is, but I think for a short time. Then the 7th one is the Antichrist that is walking around, not possessed yet. Because later it says, the 7th is also the 8th. So the 7th one also gets killed with the deadly head wound at the end of the beginning of the, hold on. It's this old lady thing. I got this, my jaws start smacking. It's not clicking. It's just like, I don't know where that comes from. I remember hearing old people, it happens to them. Some might have dentures, some don't. I don't know. Ooh, did my glasses just break? Okay, so anyway, all these characters are in the beginning. Okay. The only one that dies in the mid-trib is the whore. Another beast comes up. Okay, the 7th king, who is also the 8th. That's the Antichrist that gets killed in the head. He rises again, which now makes it an 8th. The 10 kings are already still alive. They have no kingdom. But the Antichrist is the 8th king. The sixth one is alive only a short time. Who knows what that is about? But the 7th one is the Antichrist before he's possessed. He gets his deadly head wound, and he now becomes the 8th. He gets that deadly head wound at the end of the first 3.5 years, but he's still a king for 3.5 years, but he's not possessed yet. So when he gets the deadly head wound, the beast comes up from the abyss, and now he's indwelt with Satan. It says it in 11:7 also. It says it in 17:8. The wording, okay? When it happens. All right, so he let me just read this. Now, so let me see, because I started kind of writing it. I said, note, 17 and elsewhere, keep repeating was and is and was not, because it is telling you that there was a first half equals before he was indwelt. Okay. Clue. When he is indwelt in the second half, he kills the two witnesses. So that's how you can tell as you're reading along. I'm just showing you clues that, because God skips around in these chapters, that you're, but if you find out where he mentions them, then you can put them together and see that it's just because he skips around doesn't mean anything's in order nor out of order. So when he is indwelt in the second half, the beginning of the second half, after 3.5 years, he kills the two witnesses. The people were getting killed by the whore. Yeah. The Antichrist. Yeah. The whore sitting. Remember, she's drunk with the blood of the saints. So that first 3.5 years, she is killing Christians. They're not even asked yet to take the mark, I don't think. They're getting the mark kind of primed. Like the image of the beast is the one that's going to make everybody take the mark. But that's probably not going to happen till after they kill the whore and the two witnesses. I guess I haven't thought about that. But see here. Getting killed by the whore. So all those ones under the altar, those are the ones from the first 3.5 years that were killed. Because you'll see again the wording. And I can't write down everything because then I won't be able to find everything. And I mean, I could even look it in my book, but I don't even know where I see this stuff. And I have been for 2 days going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I do it so much that you'd think I'd remember where I saw it, but it makes it worse. And I can't. Or I am not paying attention to which chapter. I finally, after 1,000 times, could remember 13. Oh, that's chapter 13. I know what happens there. But I mean, even then, I'm not. Okay, so now, okay, we're getting killed by the whore for 3.5 years. The whore that's on the Antichrist, that's on the beast. Okay? And he's not, before he was indwelt. In the second half, and the two witnesses were alive in the first half also. See, maybe everyone's been teaching it the same way, but because it is very confusing when you're teaching it, they're saying the second half, or they're saying the end, or they're saying and sometimes when you say it a certain way, the beginning of the great, somebody might not. So maybe that's how I got screwed up when it was being taught. Maybe I was misunderstanding the way they worded. And the way they worded it was probably just fine. It's just that I didn't understand that didn't mean the end, Armageddon end, or it didn't mean this or that. So whenever I say these things, it's like I belabor the point of it's the beginning of the second 3.5 years. Because see, I see how now it can be confusing. All right, then. And the two witnesses were alive in the first half. Equals two witnesses and the Antichrist before he was indwelt. The whore and kings were killing people. Those are the ones under the altar. Because when you read the other verses, it says, this is the patience of the saints. These are the ones that came out of great tribulation. These are, and I mean, I can't tell you what verses, but it's a couple of times. It almost is for sure he is talking about from here on out, that first 3.5 is over, you guys, is what he's saying in the two places. He's basically saying that first 3.5 years is over. The whore was killing lots of people, and she has been killed. The whole merchant and the riches and everything, everybody's sad. There's no more of wealth. It's probably socialism somehow. Okay, there's no more wealth. And now oh, wait a minute, where am I going? Hold on, because I was trying to connect something else for you at the same time. Okay, 2 witnesses. Okay, kings were killing, martyrs under the altar. Okay, so now the great tribulation saints, patience of the saints, equals after the AC is indwelled. This is also when Jesus says, run for the hills, when the abomination and desolation. So as soon as he's indwelled, so in other words, there's a lot of people who weren't hidden in the mountain. Okay. There might be nominal. They're just going along, getting along. They think everything's fun and nice. They haven't taken the mark yet. Maybe the mark of the beast hasn't been offered yet. And definitely he's not indwelled yet. So as soon as he gets indwelled, he has killed those 2 witnesses, which are witnessing those whole 3.5 years over there in Jerusalem to the whole world on TV, probably. And then so then Jesus says, and then there's 144,000 running around doing something. And then Jesus says, run for the hills when you see the abomination and desolation. Well, when he goes in the temple and says that he's God, I don't know if he's already killed the whore who has already killed a bunch of Christians. I don't know if he, well, it says as soon as that thing rises up out of the abyss, he kills the 2 witnesses. So by the time Antichrist is saying, I'm God, the 2 witnesses have been killed. And obviously Christians see it. And what else happens? Because remember, there's that earthquake, 1/10 of the city falls, 7,000 start glorifying God. 7,000 die, and the ones that see all that, they start glorifying God. They probably are realizing, hey, I want to worship God. And I don't know, maybe they run for the hills, depending on, maybe they're going to have to be tribulation saints. Because the Bible will then say, when this stuff happens, this is the patience of the saints. You now, in this second half, if you haven't run for the hills, whoever you are that gets to run for the hills, you ones that are left, you're going to have to be patient. It's going to be heinous now. Worse than the locusts for 5 months. Worse than the 4 demons running around. They still blasphemed God, even though they killed 1/3 of the humanity. With their breastplates of 3 things, and what else was I going to say? So all that mess is going along, and then they're still gathered around, and they're hating upon these 2 witnesses. Well, as soon as they die, this earthquake and 1/10 of the holy city is going to crumble, and 7,000 people will get killed. And then everybody's going to see that those 2 witnesses rose up and came back to life. That's going to, okay. So they're going to either run for the hills. I don't know if they've seen the abomination and desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. I don't know if they've seen the Antichrist come to life yet. But as soon as that's seen, okay, then 2 witnesses, horror, kings were killing, martyrs under altar. Okay, so those are those dead ones from the first 3.5 years. They're saying, so it equals great tribulation saints. After AC indwelt kills 2 witnesses and the whore. The 10 kings give their power. The 10 kings on the beast's head out of the sea. They don't have kingdoms of their own, but they decide they hate the whore. So they want to kill the whore. They kill her. I told you 10 times already. I'm repeating myself. So the beast and the 10 kings with the beast, the Antichrist, when he becomes full-blown Antichrist, possessed, indwelt, he comes back to life. He's now got Satan in him. These 10 kings, either right before or after he gets this, they say, we want to kill the whore. We don't have a kingdom of our own, but we are kings, and we want to kill the whore, which is the city of Babylon, and we want to get rid of all this merchandise. It'll tell you right there, all the kings, all the governors, all the merchants, all the people of the world are going to mourn. But they're not these kings. They are not these kings. Okay, so that tells you that there's still many kings in the world, but they're not. There's 10, these 10 kings are who we're focused on. But the word says that kings and governors and so whatever it says, so forth, are going to mourn this because they didn't want it. But these 10 kings wanted it. And after they kill her, then they give their power to the deadly wounded headed beast, okay, who is now totally indwelt. And that's who now has, okay, so, but the beast that came out from the earth, who is also the false prophet, he's still there. So it's just the Antichrist, and I don't know what happened to the 10 kings. Okay, then I have a scripture here, chapter 13, verse 12, before him. Okay, that means, I don't know what that means, but that's what I wrote. And then quotes, before him equals first half, equals before he, false prophet, was there. Okay, hold on. That's chapter 13, verse 12. That means that the false prophet was there in the first half of the tribulation. Okay? Because he's using that wording again. Who was not, and who was, and who is now is. Okay? God keeps repeating that because he's trying to let you know that I'm stating the obvious, but it's not that I'm trying to state the obvious. He's saying because this false prophet was there before the Antichrist beast got shot in the head. That's why he keeps repeating that phrase. Redundancy of saying, like, it's like we're reading it and we're saying, why do you have to tell us like that? Because we know who you're talking about. Why are you repeating all that he got shot and died and this and that? He's not saying it to be redundant. He's saying it to tell you that this false prophet was with him before he got indwelt in this, when the second half begins. And the second half begins when that what is it, a beast rises up out of the abyss. And so what else? 13:14 again repeats the deadly wound thingy. So let me see if there's anything else, or yeah, Babylon is fallen. That's in 14. And yet he's talking about the horror way later. I think like in 17. And then I forgot why I wrote this down, but in 14, 17, and 18, I think he's talking about same things. Okay, so these locusts and everything that rise up as soon as Satan falls, after he's fighting with the woman, and also he gets thrown down, and also a star comes crashing down, right? I think he's given the key to the pit, and he unleashes this stuff for 5 months. You can read that in, I didn't write the Revelation 9, but see, they're not allowed to hurt the 144,000 who got marked in chapter 7, and also it talks about them in 2 other chapters. It talks about them in chapter 14, and it talks about them in chapter 9. That's when it's saying don't hurt them. They got marked in chapter 7. They're not to be hurt by the locusts. And then in chapter 14, I think it's talking about how they're following Jesus around. So I think that's all, and I know there's more, but I won't be able to remember what it is. Um, I mean, if there were, like, if I had feedback, somebody in my face with face feedback, and we're talking in real time, and they're like, yeah, but this, and yeah, but that, and what about this, and what about that, and no this, no that, and debating, I would be able to remember. I would be able to then express what I want to express, but without that real time debating, and I would learn stuff, I'm sure, because I'm not finished here. But when I do finish, hopefully I'll be able to make some other, because sometimes I'll rewrite everything down again, which can kind of help you remember. But because I wanted to do it and, like, say, add a few more things, maybe it got too sloppy, so, or I'll think of more things, and then I'll add more things because I went and backtracked. So in all that, doing all that, maybe I will come across a way to then, write it more with the numbers and the wording better. But I mean, I could probably go through my whole Bible, but like, these few pages, these are like, so I am so glad they use this kind of paper, because these would be threadbare by now. They would be totally trashed, threadbare, trashy pages, because I'm constantly going, oh wait, oh here, oh here, oh here, and there, and no, over here, and over there, and over here. So, and then I'm writing more things in, and I'm doing, so, and I don't even hardly read what I wrote sometimes. So, I'm just saying that when all this is said and done, maybe I'll have a better write down, like I'll have written it down better, and added into it the trumpets and the seals, maybe. But look, it's obvious that seventh seal, seventh trumpet, is not even going to go off until the Antichrist is indwelt after 3.5 years, after the first half. And to me, that's crazy. I never, thought that, but it's written that way. And if, like I said, in real time, face to face, you'd be like, where is it? I would pause and I would try and go find it. But since you're not here to talk to me in real time and say, yeah, tell me, show me, I don't know what you're saying. So, but anyway, let's see, stuff like in chapter 10, verse 7, it is finished, when the same seventh angel, okay, so that, I don't think he's saying it is finished as in the end, but he's finished with something I was trying to look into, and I can't remember what it was, but I think it's very interesting if it is like this, because when there is a rapture, when there is a hiding in the Mount of Olives, it's not like everyone's going to be having time. I knew this before I started dissecting Revelation 2 days ago. I've been reading it and listening to it for a while, but this time I was able, after all that time listening to it and reading it, well, I wasn't reading it, I was listening to it, I found somewhere where I can put down an anchor. And that was right here, where I read to you, the beast, the second beast, the third beast, the whore, that I wanted to put an anchor down in that, because I wanted to anchor down the timing of those and why are they repeated. Next thing I want to anchor down is something about I think it has to do with the throne. It's always going back to the throne of God, the throne. And every time it goes into that throne of God, every time it goes into that, I think it is going into something like it's either the very end, it's the very final. Those then themselves are a timeline in themselves, because they're usually, like I said, God keeps backtracking from the very, very end. Then he'll go into the beast. Then he'll talk about the very end in the throne room, and how many without number are praising and worshiping him. I mean, because that's the very end. So this is in no way, shape, or form in chronological order. I don't think even these 7 churches, you will see language like they say they're apostles and they are not. The only other time it says that word apostles is in the very end. In the very end. So there's something very serious about apostles. Everyone wants to focus on the one that says, and they say they are Jews and are not. The apostle, they say they're apostles and are not. I'm wondering if these 7 churches are churches that are going through the first 3.5 years. Then they're under, I don't know why they were left behind. I know there's people that believe that we're all going to suffer in the whole 7-year trib. Well, maybe that's probably how they get that from. I mean, that's probably why they teach that, because it looks like a bunch of, I understand that when all the Christians are raptured, a lot of these nominal ones might, God knows your heart. You may seem nominal, but you're not. You love God with all your heart that you can. You're doing your calling in life that he gave you, and you're busy with it, right? So it doesn't mean you'll get left behind just because you're not sitting over here worshiping God like a preacher, So I think the ones that are going to have to die for Christ are the ones that were basically like Candace or Tucker. They're being very bad. They're doing bad things. They are busybodying themselves. God hates busybodies. There's plenty to talk about other than a widow. Okay? Candace has zero fruit of the Spirit. She is slandering, backbiting, gossip. She's going to get left behind. If the rapture happens while she's alive, she will be a tribulation saint, or she might take the mark of the beast. Who knows about her? And then like people like Tucker, even in Revelation is about the sheep and the goats. The goats look like Christians. They are in the Gospels. Jesus says, you fed me when I was hungry. You gave me water when I was thirsty. You clothed me when I was naked. You visited me while I was in prison. And they say, when did we do that? And he said, when you did it unto the least of these, you have done it unto me. You are a sheep. That is not necessarily literal, but it is. It's literal and it's figurative, because you also feed your flock with the word of God. Jesus says, drink of me and you'll never thirst again. Anyone who gives a cup of water in my name, right? Jesus is the living water. So you give water, spiritual food, spiritual clothing, and someone bound in prison in their mind, you're visiting them. You're setting them free from their prison in their mind, metaphorically, and even literally. That's a sheep. The goat is, Jesus said, you didn't feed me. You didn't give me water. You didn't clothe me. You didn't visit me in prison. Those are goats. Those are Christians who don't spiritually feed anybody. Tucker, Candace. They don't clothe anybody. They don't visit anybody in prison. They're doing the exact opposite. You know, if Erica is naked, she is bearing her soul for the whole world to see. Her train wreck, she can't hide from that. She was never famous until now. You know, she wasn't trying to be. Candace has perverted everything. She was saying, we got great merch. We've been selling a lot of merch after Charlie's death because it was a blessing, not for the money. She wasn't talking about the money. She was talking about, this is proof that everyone, that Charlie's God-given mission is being fulfilled because the merch is being sold so much because people are now believing what Charlie was saying and they're coming to Christ. That's what she meant. Candace perverted that and she's going to fucking hell. Yeah, I'll curse hell. Because Tucker's always saying Jesus and God, and yeah, he's a Christian. He's a goat. He's a goat. And in Revelation, it talks about the sheep and the goat. The sheep are going to be on his right hand. The goat are going to be on his left. Whatever, sorry. In the Gospels, Jesus describes what a goat is. They are goats. Erica was naked. She's naked. She has no control over what has happened to her. She's vulnerable. And these goats have not clothed her. Do you see? It's you call yourself a Christian, you better make sure. God doesn't take that lightly when you label that on yourself and you want to do everything against, just like these Christians that think, oh, Trump is the Antichrist, Obama was, or so-and-so was. That goes against the word of God. You're a goat. You're a goat. I'm sorry. I don't care how much you hear from God and how much Bible you read and how much you're praying. If you're going to blatantly go against something you know better, just like he says, those who knew more get beaten with more stripes. Maybe that's trib. Those who knew less and did it ignorantly, they'll get beaten, but with fewer stripes. So, anyway, I don't know why there are, maybe somebody called themselves a Christian and they just didn't take it seriously, so they got left behind. But like I've said before, all these 2,000s of years worth of people that have died being lukewarm like that, being a Candace, being a Tucker, and they didn't get to see the rapture, they didn't get to see the tribulation. Well, what is their punishment? The punishment for Tuckers and Candaces that are alive are going to be in the trib. What about the Tuckers and Candaces that have died for these 2,000s of years? They're not the dead in Christ that rise first. They are probably going to get some burning off in hell, just like it talks about in 1 Corinthians, where their house gets burned down, but only their soul, just like in Lot. Only their lives were saved because Lot was in the midst of Sodom and Gomorrah. You need to listen to that Alan Nolan video I shared in my post, because not only is he talking about that and other stuff, it's 2 hours. He describes the Harvard professors, theological. Do not listen to any Harvard professor on theology because they're doing it literally and they don't understand the Bible. So therefore, they screw it up, one, or they will say, see how the Bible isn't true. It contradicts itself, because Alan Nolan explains why they don't understand the Bible, because they don't know how to interpret it out of the Hebrew and Greek story writing the way they wrote things down, things were inferred, and it's just a whole different way. The Harvard people and the college people are doing it out of a, what was the word he used? Out of a, like a literary, like a philosopher kind of way. You can't interpret the word that way. You can't, or it will sound contradictory. And half those people that want to believe that shit, it's just they already want an excuse not to believe it. So I'm not, caring about them, but they are fucking up a lot of minds, and it's because they don't read any of their books on the Bible. Any Harvard graduate professor, any Harvard professor on Christianity, on the Bible, do not believe them. They are, even if they're for the Bible, you don't know how they're interpreting it. They could be twisting it because they are interpreting it under a philosophical type. You just should, here, I'll show you it's in my post. I don't think I've posted much lately, so it's not too far down. You see? The horrors of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's 2 hours and 6 minutes. And he also brought up the point that is true, that Sodom, Lot and his family just got out by their lives. Everything else was burned down that they owned, because he explains it better, but because they were living amongst heathens, and they I don't know what they could have done. They could have left, or they just, their children, their offspring were getting influenced by being surrounded by all that mess. That's why they slept with their father, because, I mean, once you've seen so much of this debauchery around you, it's not such a bad idea to sleep with your dad, to get pregnant. So, and to this day, we're dealing with Ammon and Moab. But Moab are the lineage of Canaanites or something. But God redeemed one person out of that Moab because Jesus has got that lineage. It's either Ruth and Naomi. It's either Ruth or Rahab. Those two women are not Jews. One is like a Canaanite, and one is like a Moabite or something like that. But they became Jews because they said, your God is my God, okay? They circumcised themselves. Not a female, but their heart. They believed in God, the one true God. Okay? And Rahab was a harlot. She hid the spies. Those two women were not Jews. They were outside of they were enemies of the Jews, their bloodlines. Okay? But Jesus came from those two women. They're in his lineage. Ruth is, and Rahab is. And so one of those women is from the Moabites, whatever that nationality is. I think she says, yeah, it's a Moabite. One is a Moabite. That's from the daughters of Lot. That's either the oldest daughter's son and the youngest daughter's son. She named Ammon. She named him something else, but it means Ammonites. So God redeemed a Moabite out of, and then one is a Canaanite, okay? And those are in the line of Jesus. Jesus came from those women, see, because they were, anyway. First Corinthians says, Jesus says, he even says, now I don't know what he means by those who knew more get beaten with more stripes. I mean, what does that mean? When you die, Are you going to be beaten, if you're not in the trib, because you died first, you're going to be beaten with more stripes? I mean, when does that happen? I think it happens in hell. You get burned for a little while. And I did some videos on that. I don't believe you can, I don't believe the ones, like, I already did some videos on that stuff, but, and even that boy Nathan, he kind of is talking about that. And I've even seen near-death experiences that don't talk about that subject, but they've visited hell. So, anyway, if that is anything good, I wasn't meaning to. I didn't mean to go over Revelation, really, but because of Zechariah 14 and Ezekiel 38 and stuff, I knew there were some things in Revelation about the subject. I also knew about the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, with Jesus on the Mount of Olives, that whole rundown. I want to go over that as well. I want to fit all that stuff in together with the Zechariah 14 and the, Ezekiel 38. And it's just that I knew some things were in Revelation. And I've gone through the Sermon on Mount of Olives a couple times. That's mind-bending too, to me. But anyway, yeah, I didn't mean to, I'm just trying to piece it together to where it matches everything. Because I don't like it when people want to just go over Revelation and the book of Daniel. And that's it. And if they go over the Mount of Olives, they'll do it just by itself. They won't mix Daniel in with it, and they won't mix Revelation in with it. It's because it won't fit together. They don't know how to fit it together, I guess. And they won't dare touch Ezekiel 38 because nobody knows where that fits in. Scholars, Zechariah 14, nobody goes over that with the Mount of Olives sermonette, whatever it's called, in the Gospels. So I'm sick of it. And I want to fit it together. If Jesus will show me, and listen, I don't have that long of an attention span. So if it's too complicated, I'm like, forget it. I'll just live with it the way it is. But I don't have a short attention span on this. It's like I'm a bulldog on it. I may not spend hours on hours on hours on hours, but throughout, when I get time, I will. And sometimes it is hours. And I'm not giving up. Now, if for some reason, but if it does come to a point where I've done all I can do to try to see how it does, because I have seen how it does, but that's without Revelation, but I see how it fits with Isaiah. I mean, I want to see how it fits with all of it. And if I start working on it and then I can't, then after I work on it for as much as I can and I realize I can't, then I'll drop it. But thank God, so far I haven't felt like, I got to drop this. Benny, we were outside. But I got to get off the phone anyway, oh my. So God bless you guys, and hopefully if this helps anybody. But if not, maybe next time I'll be a little more making sense. Okay, bye.